The Cleveland Browns finally admitted that the Deshaun Watson trade is one of the worst of all time. But what do they do at quarterback now? We'll discuss on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to another edition of Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Lauren Cox. On today's episode, we are going to talk about the NFL banning the Tush Push and what an alternative might be for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll also talk about Aaron Rodgers throwing to DK Metcalf and what that combination could look like. But we'll start with the Cleveland Browns finally admitting what we all know, and that's the Deshaun Watson trade is one of the worst of all time. Before we get into all of that, though, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Lauren, we heard from Browns owner Jimmy Haslam at the league meetings on Monday. And like I've said, he finally admitted what all of us were already ready to admit for him. And he said this via Mary Kay Cabot on Twitter. Quote, "We took a big swing and miss with Deshaun. We thought we had the quarterback. We didn't. And we gave up a lot of draft picks to get him. So we've got to dig ourselves out of that hole. It was an entire organization decision, and it ends with D and I, so hold us accountable." D Haslam is Jimmy Haslam's wife, if you didn't get the reference of the name. But I found it, look, we all know that the Deshaun Watson trade is one of the worst of all time. I don't know if it is the worst of all time. You could put the Herschel Walker trade in there. I think the Russell Wilson trade deserves to be involved in that. The A.J. Brown trade recently is one that could probably be put into that conversation. There are a few trades out there that you could point to, but this one is certainly top 3, top 5 at minimum, potentially top 1 considering the guaranteed money. I guess we all know this, but to hear the owner of the Browns admit it, and remember, Deshaun Watson is still on that roster.
Yeah, the fact that Watson is still on the roster and they're admitting this to me is the second most shocking part of that. The first most shocking part is that he threw his wife under the bus with him. That was insane. He's going to be sleeping on the couch for a week. Like, you got to take that one on yourself, man. Just say, hey, my bad. But D and I together made that bad call. She's got to be just giving him the stink eye from across the room.
Absolutely.
The whole time that's happening. But no, it's very strange. Like, it's not like, okay, this is a year removed and Watson's somewhere else or he's retired or he's doing something else. Like, he's still under contract for your football team. Like, your only quarterbacks right now are him and Kenny Pickett. Like, that's if Watson is healthy at some point, like right now, that's your starting quarterback still. So to be like, yeah, we really screwed this one up is such a weird dynamic that because it hasn't resolved yet.
Yeah, it's so strange. And not only has it not resolved yet, but like he might be on the roster again in 2026 as well. Like, they have an $81 million cap hit in 2026 for Deshaun Watson with $46 million this year and next year in cash that they have to give him still. They're going to have $55 million in dead money, even if they keep him through 2026. Like, so this is a guy that's going to be in your building. He's going to be around unless you go ahead and cut him this offseason, like maybe after June 1st or something, they just cut him. But I don't see how they could have the salary cap to do something like that at this time with all the dead money they're going to incur. So they restructured his contract already this offseason, which proves to me that they're not going to move on from him right now because they've kicked his money down the road already. It wouldn't make sense to do both. So they're in a precarious situation, and I think the financial impact on them going forward does kind of vault this up with the fully guaranteed nature. It does vault it up to potentially worst of all time. If the Texans were to win a championship with CJ Stroud, I think it would be fair to put it in there, but Dallas getting 3 titles out of the Herschel Walker deal, it's kind of hard to beat that, even with how bad the Watson deal seems.
Well, it feels to me like this, as far as like the worst deal for the Browns here, like this one feels longer to recover from
It
what
does.
it's doing up here, right? Like, it's not even necessarily about the draft picks. Like, I think when we compared it to Herschel Walker or even like the Ricky Williams trade, like where you give up a bunch of draft picks and like, yeah, it sucks for a year or two because you don't have those draft picks. But for the Browns, it's been like multiple seasons of, they've kind of already caught up on the draft pick side. They got plenty of picks this year. That's not the problem. It's how much money on top of the draft picks that you gave up that have crippled your ability to build this franchise. Like, as great as Herschel Walker was and as promising as Ricky Williams was, like the quarterback versus running back thing makes a big difference here in terms of how much they're paid and how much of an impact they have on winning and losing. That makes Deshaun Watson such a next level disaster that hurts your team in more ways than just you gave up a bunch of picks for a bad player.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. The question now becomes, what do they do next? Where do the Browns go from here? And I found another interesting quote here via Mary Kay Cabot from Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, that said, quote, "It would be great if we could get the quarterback, but we're not going to force it." I know that, and listen, it's draft season. I go back and forth hour by hour, day by day as to what I think these teams are going to do. But hearing that, I'm sorry, for me, it's hard not to just replace quarterback with Cam Ward. It would be great if we could get Cam Ward, but we're not going to force it. Like, we're not going to make the trade up. I don't know why I feel this way now, but the way that I've read some comments recently and the way that I see it going, I have a feeling that the Browns are not going to take quarterback number 2 overall. If you were them, are you taking Shedeur Sanders? Or I almost feel like the Deshaun Watson stuff may almost prevent them from doing it because they've sunk so many assets into the quarterback position already. To give up a number 2 overall pick for quarterback again, recognizing how important it is. I don't know. I guess the vibe, the sense that I get right now is that the Browns will go with Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter.
I'm just left feeling like no team ever thinks they're forcing it when they take the quarterback, even if they actually are. And it's one thing for them to say, we're not going to force it by, taking Jackson Dart or something, but like you could easily say that, have them convince themselves that, oh, well, it's not forcing it because we really think Shedeur Sanders is a top quarterback there. The same way that, maybe the Colts felt that way about Anthony Richardson a couple of years ago. I think back to like Zach Wilson and Trey Lance in the top 3. Like maybe you could feel like, boy, they were forcing it a little bit there, but they didn't feel like they were forcing it because they actually believed in the quarterback, even if we may have been looking around saying, well, it feels like that team might be forcing it there. And sometimes it works out and it turns out to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. And sometimes it turns out to be Mitch Trubisky and you were forcing.
It doesn't. Yeah, it could go either way. So I get it there. I think the general consensus that it seems to be is that Shedeur Sanders is not worth the number 2 overall pick. Maybe later, maybe the Browns could make a trade down. I don't know. But the sense that I get, I guess, is just, I don't see them going quarterback right now, even though last week I felt like they probably would go quarterback. But after the owners' meetings and all the different stuff and the Kirk Cousins stuff and all like that, I just think it's much more likely to see the Browns maybe go with a rookie later in the draft, maybe turn to a different option at quarterback. But with that in mind, another team that has a quarterback question is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers continue to flirt with each other. Just ship it up already. We're sick of it. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, certainly easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's complete financial command right at your fingertips. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending all in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. It's a great time of year to do this as well with, paying your taxes and all of that. Get a better grasp of your finances and a clean start. I know that when I started using Monarch here recently, I realized just how much I was spending on online shopping. Got to budget smarter. And now I can save more. I don't have to juggle multiple apps to keep track of everything either. Check my finances, track my spending, plan long-term goals, all with Monarch. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, Lauren, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Cleveland Browns finally admitting that Deshaun Watson was probably the worst trade of all time and certainly one of the tops that we've ever seen. But with that in mind, we move to another team with quarterback questions, and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And look, we continue to do this dance with the Steelers, with Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to come? Is he not? And then over the weekend, he has a throwing session with DK Metcalf, and that makes things even more interesting. And, a lot of people are saying at this point it's either Steelers or retirement from Rodgers. But I got to tell you, Lauren, going and throwing with DK Metcalf doesn't sound like a guy ready to retire to me.
Well, the question is, if not the Steelers, like what's left for him other than retirement? Like, he's not going to sit out a year? Does he play the wait until a quarterback gets hurt in training camp and then sign with a team kind of thing there? Or do we continue the Brett Favre loop and he retires and then the quarterback gets hurt in training camp and he unretires and comes back out and does it just feels to me like you said, get a room. Like these are the last two people at the bar at 3 a.m. and it's like, you're either going home together or you're going home alone, but there's no other options here. So let's figure it out.
Yeah. Closing time. Aaron Rodgers, please pick a team or go to Cabo. I'm with you there. Lauren, we cover the NFL. It's our job to talk about these things, but like practically everyone else, I'm about sick of the Aaron Rodgers, Pittsburgh Steelers situation. It's clear that they're the only option that either of them have. And what I find even more funny is that the Steelers are trying so hard to play it cool. Like you said, they're sitting at the bar. They got their leather jacket and their sunglasses on, smart, smoking their last Marlboro Red, waiting. Brother, we know what your only option is. We know what you have to do. Don't pretend. Don't give us the illusion of choice. But that's exactly what Mike Tomlin is trying to do. And my guy, Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, talked about Mike Tomlin's recent comments doing exactly that, trying to play it cool.
Mike Tomlin said, quote, "It's been reported that he spent a day with us and it was a really good day. He and I obviously known each other for some time, so it was really good to spend some time together and to get to know each other more intimately." He said deadlines don't often bring that to a head, talking about why there isn't a deadline for Aaron Rodgers right now. He's like, and then asked if he would have to settle on, if he would like to have this situation settled before the draft. Mike Tomlin said, "I hadn't thought a lot about it, to be honest with you." And a lot of people then are wondering, wait, they're not going to have this settled by the draft? Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I think there's a point to this that Mike Tomlin's trying to do. There's a little game the Steelers are playing a little bit here that is kind of just keeping people from knowing what their deal is. Now, several people nationally have been suggesting or picking the Steelers in their mock drafts to take a quarterback in the first round, whether that's Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe. But I think it's kind of interesting to hear Mike Tomlin talk about the situation that they have right now when he was asked if, if they go out and get a veteran quarterback, if Aaron Rodgers didn't work out. He didn't fully commit to that.
Well, they already got a veteran quarterback in Mason Rudolph, who they can talk them, like you were talking about earlier, talking yourselves into somebody. They could talk themselves into that if they want to. But listen, I think the Steelers are playing this close to the vest because I could see them making a move. I could see the Steelers. We've seen the Steelers jump up before. I think they did this when they jumped up for, it was the linebacker, Devin Bush or something like that. They jumped up to number 10 from 20. They've made this move before for a non-quarterback. If Shedeur Sanders does not get taken number 2 overall by the Browns, I could see him falling a little bit. And now the Raiders don't have an extension done with Geno Smith. So maybe if they don't get that done by the draft, they do that and this long-term Geno plan is over pretty quick. But if Shedeur Sanders were to fall at all, team like San Francisco at number 11, team like the Dolphins at what? Are they at 13? I think it is. Why wouldn't either of those teams want to jump back a little bit, 10 or so picks with the Steelers at 21? Aren't they 19, 20, 21, something like that? And let the Steelers come up and get Shedeur Sanders. Wouldn't Shedeur Sanders just fit perfectly with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Like, that sort of brash personality, the confidence that he exudes. I just feel like that goes perfectly with the Pittsburgh Steelers ethos.
The one thing I was stuck on with trading up for Shedeur Sanders is who are you urgently trying to trade up to get past? Like if he makes it past the Raiders at
other teams that could trade up.
Yes, hypothetical other, because it's okay, maybe Jerry Jones could be a wild card quarterback team there.
Ooh.
14 for Richardson
Yeah.
competition. Seattle at 18 to
Yep.
go with Cam Darnold. I mean, there's a couple of those teams there, but if I'm the Steelers, like, do I have to get past all those guys? Are those teams really going to use a first-round pick on a quarterback? Or if he gets out of the top 10, or can I just be confident that he's going to fall all the way to me either way? I mean, it's risky business, and if you believe in the quarterback, go get him. But at the same time, if you don't have to trade up to go get him, maybe you don't. And one quick theory on the Rodgers thing. I wonder if the Steelers aren't waiting and they say, hey, no one else is going to sign Rodgers, so wait until after the compensatory pick deadline where free agent signings no longer count against that formula, because the Steelers lost Dan Moore and Justin Fields to big contracts. Russell Wilson signed a decent amount of money. Like, they could be in line for some compensatory picks, and maybe they say, if we're going to give Rodgers some cash, why do it now when we could just wait another month and not have it count against our compensatory pick formula?
And quite frankly, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you probably don't want to do anything that would be required of you in the next month if you were actually signed to a team. You can just do your own thing and wait. So it does make sense there, but I think while it may be the best option, sometimes it's good to just have clarity. Like, all right, it's not going to be her. I'm going home. Like, I'm ready for my bed. I miss my dog. You know what I mean? I think if you're the Steelers, it's good to just have an understanding. But I'm sorry. I have a hard time selling to George Pickens and DK Metcalf and these guys. Hey, Mason Rudolph is our expected starter right now. Like, you either need to get a rookie quarterback that people are excited about, or you need to land this Rodgers thing. And I think waiting until after the draft to figure that out, like, what if Rodgers is like, it's May, and he's like, the ayahuasca's hitting good right now. I just don't want to play anymore. I'm done. I retire. Like, the darkness is feeling good right now. I'm not leaving. What if he does that and then you didn't take it seriously in the draft, or you just went with Kyle McCord in the 4th round or something like that? And now you're wasting another season away without a real answer, and there's no valid path to get one other than trading for Kirk Cousins or something like that. So I just feel like they do need some sort of clarity before the draft, because their draft picks have to be informed by what happens at quarterback this year.
It feels like either way, they should at least take somebody, whether that's Shedeur Sanders in the 1st round or, later on.
That's a big difference, though. Should we go, late day 2, or should we make the move to get Shedeur? Or should we take Jackson Dart at 21? I don't think that's the right move. I don't think Dart's worthy of a 1st-round pick, but, why not at that point if you believe in him? I think he'd be a fit at least. I think that's why the Mason Rudolph thing, Aaron Rodgers and Jackson Dart together on the Steelers makes so much sense for this year. And you can afford to take him 21 and not have to be crazy and aggressive if you can get Rodgers in there. But again, that's the big mystery here. What's he going to do?
Well, like, either way, you need a long-term quarterback answer because it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. So, like,
it's not.
If there's a quarterback in this draft that you think is your long-term answer, you're going to take him regardless of whether Rodgers is with you or not. And maybe having Rodgers puts on less pressure to say, hey, we have to get a quarterback, but like, you'd like to find your franchise quarterback either way. And either you think there's one there or there's not. And whether Rodgers is there or not, it doesn't change whether you should get the guy if he's actually truly there. It's just how much pressure you have to, as Jimmy Haslam said, force it versus not force it.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes a little bit of a difference, but the Steelers need to not fool themselves into thinking that, it'll change it that drastically. They're still going to need a quarterback in the draft. It's just about how desperately they truly need it. But, Mike Tomlin's quote said, deadlines don't create the best environments. Desperation doesn't either. So it'll be interesting to see how they attack it.
And I hate when coaches like that ask, and he said, I wasn't really thinking about it. It's like, yeah, come on. Like, that's the one lie coaches say all the time. Sorry, the guys who obsess about every possible detail on every game. Oh, well, I wasn't thinking about a deadline. But like, yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely wasn't thinking about it at all. Come on, Mike. I mean, see through that.
Yeah, give me a break on that one. But with that being said, talk about give me a break. The NFL is going to ban the tush push. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. March Madness is here, and quite frankly, March Madness is almost gone. So make sure that you take advantage of the opportunity that FanDuel is giving you to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, even who's going to cut down the nets. Me personally, the tournament this year, I've been going heavy favorites, heavy chalk. I've been backing them with spreads, totals, game props, Makes it super easy to do that on FanDuel. Hey, if you like the underdogs, which, I mean, are there any underdogs left at this point? But hey, whichever ones you like, you can back them on FanDuel. Super easy to use the FanDuel app. I love it. Visually pleasing. And when I win, I get paid instantly as well. No waiting around. So make sure that you visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Once again, that's FanDuel.com. All right, Lauren, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. Talked about the Deshaun Watson stuff and what the Browns are going to do, what the Steelers need to do going forward. But now we need to talk about what the NFL doesn't need to do, and that's ban the tush push. So we are hearing a lot of stuff out of the league meetings, the owners' meetings taking place. And it sounds like that there is quite a bit of momentum for the NFL to actually ban the tush push. I'm a bit surprised by this, but Lauren, it sounds like right now that could happen. We heard mixed reviews and mixed things from different teams at league meetings. I know like Chris Ballard, GM of the Indianapolis Colts, said it shouldn't be banned and different things like that. But there are some like Sean McDermott from the Bills who are kind of driving the bus on this that do think it needs to be banned. Where do you kind of sit on this argument?
Yeah, I find myself feeling like this happens when one team or a couple teams figure out a loophole. I mean, it's not a loophole, but it is kind of a loophole. Like something that they're like other teams are mad that they hadn't figured it out first either, and that maybe they hadn't practiced it or believed it. Like, it's not to take anything away from the strength of Jalen Hurts or Jason Kelce, how good he was at blocking it, or now Juergens. Like, yes, it takes some skill from the Eagles here, but also it's just other teams going, hell, wait a minute, we didn't figure that out, so that shouldn't be allowed. That's not fair. And I do find it a little bit rich that somebody like Sean McDermott's talking about the safety aspect of this when the Bills ran it multiple times over and took advantage of this rule. And it's not very safe anymore. It's like, well, safety as the argument here usually ends up coming pretty thin from the NFL when they keep pushing for 18 games, and that's the next big vote on the horizon.
Yeah, safety is pretty much a nonsense argument, in my opinion. It's NFL football. Like, you can't tell me that a slant over the middle with a safety rolling down in coverage downhill is like, you're more safe than the tush push. Like, oh, watch out. That's not a very safe part of the car crash. Give me a break here. Like, we're talking about something super violent. They could argue safety all they want, but at the end of the day, we're hearing that the data doesn't back that up. The NFL has done research on this, and the data doesn't show that there's increased injury or risk for players. So if there isn't an argument for safety, you're right. There's nothing left but sour grapes. And especially, you mentioned the Bills. They ran the tush push a couple of times and didn't do it right in the playoffs. Like, they failed on a couple of those quarterback sneaks with arguably the best build for a tush push quarterback that you could ask for here. So I do think it's a bit of sour grapes. I also think that a big part of this is what you mentioned, the creativity. This is just people have found a creative way to be better at the sport. And now, other teams are, like you said, upset that they do. And who made this possible? The Philadelphia Eagles. And I got news for you. You can ban the tush push, but you can't ban human creativity. And the Eagles will think of something else. And my guy, Legacy Louie, already has a prospect in mind for the next vision.
How can you add new wrinkles to this offense and be creative? Even in the run game, like, how do you add on to already one of the best run game in NFL history? Why not add a special defensive tackle package? Oh, by the way, the tush push, you want to use somebody that's not Jalen Hurts? Maybe use a defensive tackle. Or if they ban the tush push ever, here's the Eagles' antidote to it. You ban the tush push, we're going to draft a defensive tackle that knows how to play running back to ram it up the middle. Good luck. I would love that. Pagias is one of my favorite players in this class. He's a fun study, and he's a good defensive tackle. Like, he's a fun pass rusher. He's got a good pass rush bag when it comes to moves. I think the Eagles would be interested in it.
So JJ Pagias is an interior defensive lineman from Ole Miss for the folks listening who may not be too tapped in on, day 2, day 3 draft picks down on the board. But he's a guy who played some fullback for Ole Miss, very versatile guy, former tight end who got moved to the defensive line. So listen, that's not a groundbreaking idea, though. We've seen Refrigerator Perry for your Bears hand the ball off. The Titans throw the ball to Jeffrey Simmons every now and then on the goal line. Like, defensive linemen have been used for goal line stuff for quite some time. But if it's not that, then maybe it's somebody, something else. But people in the NFL are going to find ways to skirt the rules a little bit to help themselves win. Look what the Yankees are doing with their torpedo bats right now. Like, is that against the rules? Technically not. Is it against the spirit of the game? Technically, yes. You know what I mean? Like, technically, it's like flopping in basketball. I don't know how, like, they're going to prevent people from continuing to try to do this. It's just going to keep happening.
Well, the real solution here is don't give up 9 yards on the first 3 downs, so it's not 4th-1, so they can't go to the tush push. Because they're not tush pushing on 4th and 2. They're not tush pushing on 4th and 3. Like, if you just stop them on the other plays, or don't let them get to the 1 yard line. Like, it's a crazy concept, but if you just, like, do the football stuff better, that can't work for them. And I can also come around what you're saying. Like, the Eagles won the Super Bowl not because the tush push was so effective. Like, if they hadn't had the tush push this season, sure, they might not score quite as many touchdowns or whatever, but like, you can just hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley instead, and maybe the success rate isn't as high as the tush push, but it's still going to be pretty darn high. There's a lot of other ways to get 1 yard on 4th and 1, and this is not going to be the difference between the Eagles going all the way and the Eagles missing the playoffs or something. Like, this is a very small sample size of plays across the NFL that have a big impact, sure, but like, you can find other ways to do it.
And I'm sorry, how much more dangerous is a regular quarterback sneak than the tush push? Like, to do this, you would have to get rid of the quarterback sneak altogether. And I'm sorry, that's just not what they need to be doing. So if this gets banned, I'm going to be a little disappointed. Will it prevent me from watching football or lessen my love for the NFL? Absolutely not. Let's be honest about it. I'm never going to stop watching. They got me. It's too late. But,
like,
it will be disappointing.
However they decide the way to ban it, like, they're going to have to write, like, okay, you can't get behind the quarter. There's got to be specific rules, right, to delineate this play. And so it seems like the Eagles is just going to come up with a new version of the play that skirts around the new version of the rule. So, okay, technically they're not going to push Jalen Hurts the same way, but maybe you push the center with another player. You push the guards. Like, you're pushing the lineman instead of the ball carrier, but you're still pushing. Like, it's hard to, how do you write specific rules that just say this exact play? Because you just have to tweak one little thing and change one little version, and now it's a different play. So good luck stopping it.
Yeah, if it's that difficult to create language to ban it, it's probably going to be too difficult to get rid of altogether. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, Lauren Cox. As I tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in, and stay safe out there.